What would you ask a lawyer if you could ask them anything? My brother and I opened up an answering machine to allow friends and family to do just that. The questions we received were remarkable. So remarkable, in fact, that we decided to turn them into a podcast. Now, while this podcast isn't legal advice and it's just for fun, we think you're really going to like what you hear. With that being said, my name's Nathan Beam, and I help run a personal injury law firm in Melbourne, Florida.
My name's Riley Beam, and I'm a personal injury attorney.
And from the law offices of Douglas R. Beam, this is Good Questions for Bad Days.
So my dog got out of the house right as a bicyclist was riding by, and he has this weird thing with bicycles where he has to run at them. So he non-aggressively ran at this guy on a bike. It did, when we were served papers for this, it did state that he was non-aggressive. He's just an idiot. So he ran at this guy on a bike. The guy fell off, hit his knee, and broke his kneecap or something. What are the legal repercussions of this?
Well, the caller is in a tough spot because he is responsible for what his dog does. Even if the dog was being friendly, it wasn't a violent thing. Imagine if you're the bicyclist. This dog ran at you. You have no idea if it's friendly or not. And you react and you fall and get hurt. Don't you think, should that be your fault or should it be the fault of the person that let the dog out of the house? So, this is a situation where the caller needed to have their dog secured. They didn't. Someone's hurt. And now the caller is responsible for things like the medical bills of the person who got hurt, any future medical bills if there's anticipated treatment needed down the road, missed work. There's other things like pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, these intangible damages that are a little more difficult to calculate compared to a medical bill, but they are on the hook now for what their dog did.
So Riley, in the eyes of the law, is a dog more akin to a car or more akin to a child?
Under the law, the dog is like property. So it's like a piece of furniture that barks and breathes and eats and runs around and can bite things, but it's property. So if a dog gets hurt or dies, the dog is valued at its property value, not what it means to the family that maybe lost the dog or otherwise. So it's also the responsibility of the person that owns the dog to make sure, their property isn't running around and hurting people.
Man, that is so weird. What a strange way to view a dog in the modern context, I guess. Well, that leads me to another question, Riley. When you are thinking about getting a dog, I know you have a great dog, but when you thought about getting one, were there any rules you followed or any guidelines you set up to protect yourself legally so that the situation the caller was facing wasn't happening to you?
Yeah, so different breeds have different purposes. There's barky, yippy dogs, and then there's dogs that do attack, and that's what they're bred to do. And, you'll want to know their history. In Florida, where I practice, the dog doesn't even need to have a history. If it hurts someone, you're on the hook for it. But the more you know about the dog's propensity, the more you can prepare for it. Make sure if you have children, young children, if the dog is food aggressive, all these types of different characteristics a dog may have. Just be careful with dogs around children. It's a lot of the dog attacks that involve children, and they can be very gruesome lifelong injuries because the children just can't defend themselves against certain dogs. So that's what I'm thinking about. First thing is protecting children and other people from the dog if I'm going to have people around my house. And then beyond that, making sure you have the right insurance on your homeowner's policy, talking to the agent, letting them know, your insurance agent, what your situation is, making sure I have the right amount of coverage for that in case of the worst. And most people's dogs I know, this never happens. These kind of freak accidents, especially if they're being cautious people, but those freak accidents do happen, and you just have to be ready for them. So that's what I'd be thinking about it as I'm looking at dogs. I'd be thinking about all those things.
Well, there you have it. It sounds like for all of us scrolling Instagram for that perfect pup, there's a lot for us to consider. Namely, getting a great fence and getting a great insurance policy. I never thought I'd have to get that with Lassie. Well, anyways, if you're facing a legal issue, particularly a personal injury one, call us. With over $100 million in settlements and verdicts for families in Central Florida, we've gotten pretty good at what we do. And in the 35 years we've been open, the reviews and the word from the community, I think, is representative of that. So if you're facing any sort of legal issue, you should call us. If we can't help you, there's a really good chance that we know someone who can. And hey, if you're an attorney who's listening to this podcast and is looking for co-counsel in Florida, you should also give us a call. We regularly work on multi-million-dollar cases and would be happy to help. You can reach us at 321-723-6591 or at dougbeam.com. And from all of us, the law office of Douglas R. Beam, we really appreciate you listening, and we're looking forward to answering more good questions for bad days.